Romans 8:1. Therefore, there is now no condemnation, no adjudging guilty of wrong for those who are in Christ Jesus. Remember in Romans chapter 7, he was talking about a person who sees themselves as constantly failing. And then he says, but now there is no condemnation to those who are in, no adjudging guilty of wrong. There is no judgment of you being wrong when you're in Christ Jesus. The Father doesn't judge us unrighteous. The Father doesn't judge us a failure, but we may. And the thing about Romans chapter 8, and this is the thing, I know a lot of people read verse 1, Romans chapter 8:1, and at the very end of it, some translations put it this way: there is no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but walk after the Spirit. And many translations don't have that end phrase in verse 1. But many translators who translated the Bible put that in there because of the transition that was happening there. The transition it's not that God condemns you. And Apostle Paul's not talking about God condemning us here. He's talking about the mindset of a person. He's talking about you condemning yourself. Okay? So how do I get free from this condemned mindset? There's no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. And the word walk means occupied with. There is no condemnation in the heart of a believer who is occupied with who they are in Christ. I have been a believer my whole life. I've been a Christian my whole life. I lived in condemnation half of it. So there was condemnation for me, and I was in Christ Jesus. It wasn't coming from the Father. It was coming from my own heart. It was coming from my own wrong thinking, that I wasn't righteous, that I wasn't good enough, that I was a failure, that I couldn't get it right. There's no condemnation to those who are occupied with Jesus. I don't want someone just to tell me there's no condemnation to me. I want to know how to live free of it. You can sit there and tell me all day, Connie, you're in Christ Jesus. There's no condemnation to you. How do I live free from it? I still feel condemned. I don't care how many times you tell me that there's no condemnation in Christ Jesus. I still feel condemned. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what's the freedom? Where's the answer? Be occupied with Jesus. Change your focus, refocus. It's not about us. It's not about our strength and our ability and our good works. It's about His ability and His strength and His good work on the cross. And when we become occupied with who we are in Christ, that's when we live free from condemnation. I want to live in the reality of this. I don't know about all of you. I'm sure you do too. But I don't want it to be a doctrine I believe. I don't want to be an argument that I'll sit there and say, God doesn't. I want to live free of it. Because condemnation kills. It kills your relationships. It kills your self-image. It kills your emotions. It kills your life. It kills your body. Condemnation, it produces death. And Jesus came to set us free from the law of sin and death. He came so that we might live in the Spirit. Woohoo! So how do we live free from condemnation? Be occupied. Your mind is occupied with Jesus and what He did for you. And who you are in Him. There is no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who do not occupy themselves with the flesh, but they occupy themselves with the Spirit and what the Spirit has to say. And what does the Spirit say? You're righteous in Jesus. You're favored in Jesus. You're blessed in Jesus. You're qualified in Jesus. You're accepted, approved. Woo! In Jesus. Because the Spirit of God came to point us to Jesus.